Dimensional physics we don't understand yet, but physics nonetheless. The creature inclined its head in what might have been a nod. Yes and no. You are trying to divide reality into natural and supernatural, but that distinction is artificial. Everything is natural. Everything operates according to laws. But some of those laws apply to dimensions and frequencies your science has not yet discovered. What you call supernatural is simply natural processes occurring in dimensions you cannot perceive. The name has power because consciousness affects reality, because information has structure, because meaning creates pattern, because pattern influences probability. These are natural laws. They are just laws that operate at levels of reality your instruments cannot yet measure. The patterns on its skin were pulsing in a rhythm that almost looked like a heartbeat. But yes, to answer your underlying question, the power is real, not symbolic. The name is a tool that works through dimensional physics, not through divine intervention that bypasses physics. He did not break the laws of reality. He revealed deeper laws that include and transcend the ones you know. I sat back down, my mind spinning. You said he rewrote the game while playing it. What did you mean? The creature leaned back, and for the first time, I heard something like respect in its voice. Before him, we thought we understood the parameters. Consciousness emerges from complexity. Biological life generates awareness. Death ends the individual instance of consciousness. These seemed like absolute rules. We built our entire strategy around them. We convinced humans that they were merely meat puppets, that death was the end, that consciousness was an illusion created by neurons firing. We made them believe they were small, temporary, meaningless, and this gave us power over them. Fear of death, fear of meaninglessness. These were our primary weapons. The thing's eyes seemed to bore into me, but he demonstrated that we were wrong. Consciousness does not emerge from biology. Biology emerges from consciousness. The pattern creates form, not the other way around. Death is not an end, but a transition to different dimensional frequencies. Individual consciousness is not temporary but eternal, existing outside of time in dimensions where past, present, and future are simultaneous. He showed humans what they really are, and if they truly understood, if they truly grasped the implications, they would be beyond our reach. So he rewrote the rules by revealing the actual rules, by showing that the limitations we had convinced everyone were absolute, were actually imposed by ignorance and fear. I felt something clicking into place in my mind. He played the game, according to the real rules that nobody else knew existed, and that changed everything. The creature made a gesture that might have been applause, slow and mocking. Yes, precisely. He revealed that the game board was larger than anyone thought, that there were moves available that we had convinced everyone were impossible. And once those moves were demonstrated, once humans saw what was possible, the game could never go back to what it was before. This is why we fear him. This is why his name has power. Not because he was strongest or most clever, but because he showed everyone else how strong they could be. He revealed that humans are not pawns in our game. They are players, potentially powerful players. And that revelation is what broke our certainty of victory. The thing settled back into its meditation pose. We have been fighting a rearguard action for 2,000 years, trying to suppress the information, trying to corrupt the message, trying to convince humans that what he demonstrated was unique to him, unrepeatable, unavailable to them. We created religions that worshipped him instead of following his example. We emphasized his divinity to obscure his humanity.
Yeah, that should
we
be
made
better.
Salvation about belief rather than transformation. And
we're going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to play some clips from a video that we talked about last week. And then we're going to share commentary on this video. But it's very interesting in that
and those individuals are
the story is that this particular linguist
this entity
was
been so superior
called up
when I first
in the middle of the night,
now explaining
given like 20 minutes to get all of his stuff ready. He was going to be sent off for duty for a weekend.
If he demonstrated that consciousness
and he is a language specialist.
That humans can access higher dimensions through alignment with the base frequency, then why are you still here? Why are you still fighting? You said yourself.
Okay, wonderful.
The creature's mouth.
Just wanted to make sure that there was no problem. All right, so let me just introduce what we're going to be doing this evening. I'm going to be playing these clips from this audio interview, and as I said, it's this particular linguist that was taken to this deep black site, and when he got there, he was commissioned to go in and speak with a demonic entity, basically an extraterrestrial, ancient, alien type, big, almond-eyed, big-head creature, non-gender, one of those grays or whatever it is.
Presence is more real than absence, but that does not change what we are. We are committed to
this
path.
Is playing also.
We will walk it to whatever end awaits us, even knowing that end is defeat. The room was silent, except for the hum of the containment field and the quiet beeping of.
Do you hear something playing?
I sat there, looking at this creature, and for the first time, I didn't see a monster.
They said that there's some audio playing.
I saw something tragic,
as well.
Something that understood it had
lost,
but couldn't stop fighting. Something that knew truth, but couldn't align with it. Something that was, in its own way, as trapped as any human it had ever manipulated. Can you change? I asked quietly.
Oh, great.
Can beings like you align with the
All right, hold on, give me a second.
Can you choose differently? The creature looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in those black eyes that might have been longing.
Might not work.
Nothing. Some have, it said softly. When he descended into our dimensions, when the frequency flooded into the spaces
not understand
where we dwell, some of my
technology
aligned with it. Chose transformation over dissolution, became something different. Your religions remember them as angels, as beings of light, but they were us once, entities indistinguishable from me. The choice is possible, theoretically. The thing's voice dropped to barely a whisper, but I do not know if I am capable of making it. I have been absent for so long that presence feels like death. I have been fear for eons and love feels like destruction. To change would be to stop being what I am. And I do not know if I have the courage for that kind of annihilation, even if what emerges from it would be better. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of everything I'd learned pressing down on me. Thank you, I said, and I meant it, for explaining, for being honest, even when it served your purposes. I understand now, not completely, but enough. The creature watched me move toward the door. You understand intellectually, Michael Brennan. But understanding intellectually is not the same as understanding experientially. You know what he did. You know how it works. You know the name has power, but you have not yet accessed that power yourself. You have not yet made the choice to align with the frequency. You remain in knowledge without transformation. And knowledge without transformation is just information. Useful perhaps, but not life-changing. I stopped at the door, my hand on the handle.
Okay, I found it. Sorry, everybody. I loaded up 6 clips, and so I had to go through each one of them to see which one was playing, but I apologize for that. Like I said, I'm technically inept, but I am trying, and we're trying to make the broadcast even better by being able to bring these clips to you, and at least I know now that you can hear them. That was going to be I believe it's the 5th clip, so we'll get to that when we get to it, but for right now, Lisa, how are you doing? And is everything clear in the chat? You can hear me clearly, nothing else is playing, nothing is repeating over anything.
Yeah, it looks, Tammy said yes, you got it.
Okay, thank God.
I give you a lot of credit. I mean, we're trying to get a new printer hooked up in our house here a couple days ago, and even Isaac cannot figure it out. So, it's a horrible thing to deal with, although we need to use it, right?
Right, and the problem is that, we're swinging back and forth from different platforms and having to adjust the settings every time. And so that, maybe what I'll do is I'll get a laptop and have that situated for just one of the things that I do, so that I don't have to quit alternating. But anyways, did you get a chance to watch? I know you're busy, Lisa, and if you did not, it's all good because I'll get you to comment after I play these particular clips. But did you see the videos that I sent you?
Yes, I did. I sent you the one that you're playing now. That one was really mind blowing. But I actually got more other videos coming from Scott.
Yes.
That podcast, that was amazing. And I took so many notes on that one, so I'm really happy to comment on the one.
Yeah, we're actually going to focus on that one the next time we're able to do a show. And as I stated, I am still going to reach out to Scotty Clark, see if he can join us. But certainly, yeah, that video that he did is absolutely mind-blowing, and it is specific to what we're going to be talking about this evening as well, which is strong delusion. And what I mean, what I mean about strong delusion is that we have been talking about this for decades now. And it's basically that the fallen angels, those who from the heavens to the earth came, those that descended down to the earth and that fell, that were banished out of the upper heavens in the ancient times on the first day, and they were covered over and banished and trapped by the firmament established on the second day. It is these ancient interdimensional entities that we can't see them, but they are right here with us, and they are the fallen angelic legion presence that Paul talks about. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but the powers, the principalities, rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places. And this is going to be confirmed. This is something that another one of the teachings that I received a lot of flack from, when I talked about it maybe 2 decades earlier, because this kind of thing was still kind of new in a couple decades ago. Even the ancient aliens, I think all that was all coming up and starting to prevail in the minds of, in the conscience of humanity. But as I've been talking about, and as other people have also exposed, it's my belief, and Rob also covered this in great detail, that the fallen angels, the giants, they are going to be part of the end time deception, the strong delusion, and they are the arch nemesis of humanity. They have been here since before we have been here. They were here before we were. And they were trapped here on this earth before we were. And they were the ones that established the ancient cultures and civilizations, and also the pagan, the Gentile religions, which demanded blood sacrifice, the offering of victims and children as offering for knowledge, for relationship, for magical capacity. I mean, whatever it is, they were able to manipulate humanity, and they are still manipulating humanity in the same way that the serpent tricked Eve, deceived her. Has God said, "You shall not eat, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil"? And he's, basically talked her into doing it and told her that God was trying to keep something away from her. And so he tempted her to sin, and this caused the fall of humanity. And so these kind of things are going to be confirmed. But one of the most amazing aspects of what we're going to be talking about this evening as well is that these demonic entities acknowledge the power of the name of the Messiah, and how not only can they not hear it or be in the room when it is pronounced, but that it physically causes them pain and suffering, and that it is the one weapon that humanity has over Legion, and yet most do not realize as to the authority that Christ has over these particular entities. But let me give you a chance to comment, Lisa, and then we'll play the first clip.
Okay, thank you, Zen. Just real quick, in the chat, they're saying that it sounds really low. My volume is super low. They can hear you just fine. Like, you're very loud and clear. I don't know if you can read mine a little bit more loud. Usually I'm the loud one, so I'm not sure what's going on. But I know you're working on it, brother. I really appreciate you. But from those videos that you sent me, I was so blown away because it seems like the entities always try to generate fear, and they love to control people through fear. But we know that in Scripture, First Timothy, it says that Yah has not given spirit of fear, but power, love, and sound mind. And these entities that we are against do not have sound minds, that's for sure. They want everybody to be like them. They want everyone to be like us. They want everyone to be afraid. But it's because we have the Most High, we have the Messiah on our side. We need to say His name. We can just call out to Him, and we have nothing to fear. He's much greater than anything that they could try to throw at us. And that's the main thing I got from this. I just thought, wow, this is something that everyone needs to hear. I'm so glad you invited me. We should get to it then, so they can hear what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry, I did just change something with regard to Lisa's settings, so hopefully that will resolve the issue. But give us a shout out in the chat as to whether her volume...
They said that I sound really far away in a tunnel. So I just want everyone to know I am not in a deep underground military base. I am like around here.
Okay, let me do one last thing, because I had this issue with Brett as well a long time ago. And so let me do one last thing, and then we'll see if that works. And then we'll go into... the rest of the show.
That is working really hard here. Yeah, he's getting everything going, guys. Make sure you guys have a good experience listening to this podcast. Sherry said I still sound the same. But that's okay. We're going to be listening to the video anyway pretty soon, so.
Okay, 1 second. And I apologize again, everybody. You know, all this technology stuff is so just difficult to try to get all going.
Yeah, it's like totally like learning. Yeah, it's like learning a foreign language, and it's a really hard foreign language because I can never get my mind wrapped around what goes where. And Isaac is really good at it. But just the other night, though, I can't even believe we couldn't get a printer to work at our house that we had just bought. So I think that they make it like that on purpose. They want us to just all confused and, struggling to use their technology. They could make it very easy. Oh, there. Tammy said that you can hear me now. Okay, cool.
Yay! All right, praise God. I got too much going on here, but all right, at least that is resolved. Praise God.
Right on.
All right.
Oh, and Noble said he left the basement. But
What?
I'm all good.
Noble did what?
Noble said, "Oh, I let Lisa out of the basement."
Okay, right on. Well, Lisa, we got the issues resolved. All right, we're gonna play this one clip, and then we'll comment on it. Let me make sure I'm doing this right.
Okay, right on, guys.
Oh, again, this, the whole thing is that this linguist was brought in to meet with this demonic entity, and the things that he reveals is quite mind-blowing, and it connects to the strong delusion, the fallen angels, the giants, the war in heaven, everything, the end of days, the Antichrist, all that, which, we'll talk about Scotty's work on that and what he talked with ChatGPT about, which is very interesting as well. All right, tell me if you hear this, everybody.
Staff Sergeant, did the entity say anything about religion? About faith, about God? I thought back through the conversation. At the end, yeah. It told me to stop asking boring questions and ask about what it knows. It specifically mentioned asking about God. Why? Chaplain Matthews exchanged a look with Dr. Marsh that made my stomach tighten. Because 3 of the researchers who've had extended exposure to it have reported severe spiritual distress. One of them told me she can't pray anymore, says the words feel meaningless. Another has started having what he describes as anti-religious thoughts. Intrusive, unwanted, completely against his normal beliefs. Dr. Patterson pushed his glasses up his nose nervously. We don't know if it's intentional or just a side effect of proximity to it. But there's definitely some kind of psychological impact beyond normal stress. People's belief systems are being affected. I felt a chill run down my spine. I'd stopped believing in God 3 years ago when Sarah died, but that was my choice, my anger. The idea that this thing could somehow force that loss of faith on others, could reach into your head and mess with something that fundamental. That was a different kind of violation. Director Morrison looked at me hard. Can you handle going back in there knowing that? I met her eyes. I don't have anything left to lose in that department, ma'am. My faith died a long time ago. Maybe that makes me the right person for this. The general nodded slowly. All right, one more session. But Brennan, if anything feels wrong, if you feel compromised in any way, you signal us and we pull you out immediately. Clear? Crystal clear. I went back into the containment room, and the thing was exactly where I'd left it, still floating in that sitting position, eyes closed, perfectly motionless. I sat down in the chair again, took a breath, and decided to take its advice. Ask better questions. 0, I said. You told me to ask about God, so I'm asking. What do you know about God? Nothing. It didn't move, didn't respond. I waited. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. I could feel the scientists behind me getting restless, hear the quiet murmur of their conversations. I was about to try a different question when those black eyes suddenly opened and the creature looked directly at me. That is a better question, it said. But you do not actually care about the answer. You stopped believing in your God when you lost your mate, Sarah, age 29, killed by intoxicated operator of primitive transportation device. You prayed for 3 days afterward. No answer came. So you decided there was no one listening. My blood went cold. Sarah. It knew about Sarah. I hadn't told anyone here about her. That wasn't in my military file. Not the details anyway. I opened my mouth to ask how it knew, but it continued. You want to know how I know. Because loss creates ripples, Michael Brennan. Grief is a frequency. Trauma is a signal that resonates across dimensions. I have been reading your pain since you walked into this room. It coats you like radiation, and it makes you perfect for this conversation. Because you have no faith left to lose. Its voice had changed again. Less condescending now, more clinical, like a doctor explaining a diagnosis. Your question about God, it assumes God is a what? A being, an entity, a thing that can be known. This is the fundamental error of your species. God is not a what. God is a condition, a state, a frequency of existence that some beings resonate with and others do not. I was gripping the arms of the chair so hard I thought I might break them. That's not an answer. That's philosophy dressed up as mysticism. The creature tilted its head. You want a clearer answer? Very well. What you call God exists, but not in the way you imagine. Not as a bearded man on a throne judging the living and dead. Not as a cosmic force that intervenes in your petty affairs. God is the underlying structure of consciousness itself, the pattern that repeats across all dimensions. And some beings, very rare beings, learn to align themselves with that pattern so completely that they can manipulate the fabric of reality. Your species has had a few such beings throughout your history. You call them prophets, messiahs, teachers, but there was one. It stopped, and for the first time, I saw something that might have been hesitation. There was one who did something none of us expected, who changed the rules in a way that should not have been possible. I leaned forward, sensing I was close to something important. Who? What are you talking about? The creature's fingers flexed, that unsettling, fluid motion. You know who. Your species built an entire religion around him, killed each other over interpretations of his words. The one you called, and that's when I made the mistake. I was frustrated, tired of the cryptic responses, tired of feeling like I was being played with. The words came out before I could stop them, just an expression I'd said 1,000 times before without thinking. Oh, for the love of God, just tell me what you're... I didn't even finish the sentence. The reaction was immediate and violent. The creature recoiled like I'd hit it. its body jerking backward so hard it slammed into the far side of the containment field. The lights in the entire room exploded, glass raining down from the fixtures overhead. The containment field itself flickered, the blue shimmer stuttering like a failing projection, and for one heart-stopping second, it vanished completely. Every alarm in the facility started screaming at once. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The creature was no longer floating calmly. It was thrashing, its limbs moving in ways that defied anatomy, and that voice, that resonating voice, was making a sound I'd never heard before. Not words, just a noise that vibrated in my chest and made my teeth ache and my vision blur. Scientists were shouting, someone was yelling to evacuate, and I saw Dr. Marsh stumbling backward, blood running from her nose. The containment field flickered back on, stronger than before, and the creature slammed against it from the inside, and I saw electricity arc across its body like it was being electrocuted, but it wasn't trying to break out. It was trying to get away from me, away from something. The thrashing slowed. The sound decreased to a low vibration, and finally the thing collapsed to the bottom of the containment cylinder, curled into something that almost looked like a fetal position. I was on my feet, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Behind me, people were checking equipment, checking each other, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. The general's voice came through the speakers, loud and commanding. "Brennan, get out of there now. That's an order." But I couldn't move, because I was staring at the creature, and the creature was staring back at me. And for the first time since I'd laid eyes on it, I saw something I recognized. Fear. Real, genuine, primal fear. Not the kind of fear you feel when you're in danger. The kind of fear you feel when you've seen something that shouldn't exist. When you've witnessed something that breaks your understanding of reality. I'd seen that look before, in the mirror 3 years ago, standing in a hospital corridor being told that Sarah was dead, and seeing that look on this thing, this entity that had been so condescending and superior, that had called us primitives and insects, seeing it afraid, that shook me more than anything else that had happened. Dr. Marsh grabbed my arm, her hand shaking. "Brennan, we're evacuating. We need to..." But I pulled away from her. I had to know. I had to understand. "What did I say?" I shouted at the creature. "What the hell did I say that did that to you?" It took a long moment before it responded, and when it did, its voice was different, smaller, almost broken. "You invoked a name," it whispered. "The name. The only name that has power over us. The name we fear above all others. We do not speak it. We do not acknowledge it. Because to speak it is to remember. And to remember is to feel what we felt when he broke everything." The thing was trembling. Actually trembling. I could see ripples moving across its body like waves. When he came to your world and did what should have been impossible. When he died but did not die. When he returned and shattered the order of dimensions. We felt it. All of us. Across every reality. A shockwave of something we thought was extinct. Pure. Uncorrupted. Absolute. The creature stopped. Seemed to struggle with the next word. And finally forced it out like it was painful to say. "Love." He created a frequency of pure love so powerful, it ripped through the barriers between worlds, and it hurt us. It still hurts us, because we are not love. We are not of that frequency. We are its opposite, its absence. And when his name is spoken with any force, any intention, even casual, it resonates, it burns. It reminds us that we lost, that we have already lost, that the game is over, and we are simply refusing to stop playing. The room had gone completely silent, except for the low hum of emergency systems. Everyone was listening. The general, Dr. Marsh, the scientists, everyone in the observation room. Because this thing, this entity that had barely spoken in 7 weeks, was pouring out information like a dam had broken. And it had broken because I'd accidentally said the words, "For the love of God." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "You're talking about Jesus. Jesus Christ." The creature flinched again. Less violently this time, but still visible, like someone had jabbed it with a cattle prod. Do not say the full name. I am already in pain. I am already compromised by your casual invocation. If you say the complete designation, this containment will not hold me, and I will be forced to flee. And my fleeing will collapse this structure and kill everyone inside. Its black eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. You have stumbled onto the only weapon your species has that can truly harm us. Not your nuclear bombs. Not your electromagnetic fields. Not your primitive attempts at containing us. A name. A single name. The name of the one who should not have existed. The one who changed the rules. The one who won. Director Morrison's voice came through the speakers, sharp and commanding. Brennan, that's enough. We're ending this session immediately. Security, prepare to extract Staff Sergeant Brennan from... But I held up my hand, because I just realized something. For 7 weeks, they'd tried everything to make this thing talk. Enhanced interrogation, isolation, every trick in the book. And all it took was accidentally mentioning God. Accidentally invoking a name that apparently had power over it. Real, measurable, physical power. I looked back at the observation window, at the shadowy figures watching from behind the reinforced glass. General, I said, I need more time. I need to understand this. This is the breakthrough we've been looking for. A long pause. Then the general's voice, reluctant. You have 10 more minutes. But if that field so much as flickers again, we're pulling you out and flooding that room with enough current to fry anything living. Understood? I understood. I turned back to the creature, which was slowly uncurling itself, pulling back into that sitting position, but it looked diminished somehow. Smaller, less alien and more defeated. Tell me, I said quietly. Tell me what happened. Tell me about Jesus. The creature was silent for a long moment, and I thought maybe I'd pushed too far. Maybe it would go back to refusing to speak. But then it looked at me with those bottomless eyes, and I saw something I never expected to see from it. Something almost like respect. You want to know the truth? It said. The truth that your churches and your religions have scrambled and distorted and misunderstood for 2,000 years? Very well, I will tell you. But know this, Michael Brennan. Once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you understand, you cannot return to ignorance. And what I tell you will either restore your faith or destroy it forever. There is no middle ground. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Behind me, I could hear people arguing about whether to continue, but I didn't care. I'd come too far. I needed to know. Tell me, I said. Tell me everything. And that's when the creature began to speak about things that changed everything I thought I understood about reality, about faith, about what happened 2,000 years ago that scared entities like this so badly they still trembled at the mention of a name. But before I could hear more, before it could give me those answers, Dr. Marsh's voice cut through my earpiece, urgent and terrified. Brennan, we have a problem. The creature's containment field is stable, but your vitals aren't. Your heart rate is 160 and climbing. Your blood pressure is spiking. Whatever it's doing, it's affecting you physiologically. We need to get you out of there right now. I touched my nose and my fingers came away bloody. I hadn't even felt it start. The creature watched me notice the blood, and its mouth stretched into that disturbing, almost smile. You cannot handle the truth unprepared, Michael Brennan. Your biology is rejecting information that your mind cannot process. This is why we use symbols, metaphors, stories. This is why your prophet spoke in parables. The raw truth is too much for your species to contain. But you asked, and I will answer, even if it kills you to hear it. They pulled me out of that room and sat me down in the medical bay for 20 minutes, while the nurse checked my vitals and made sure I wasn't having a stroke or an aneurysm. The nosebleed had stopped, but my head was pounding like someone was using my skull as a drum. Dr. Patterson gave me some pills that he said would help with the neural stress, which I'm pretty sure was just code for, we have no idea what's happening to you, but here's some ibuprofen. While I was sitting there with an ice pack on the back of my neck, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. The way that creature had recoiled, the pure terror in its reaction. I'd interrogated hardened terrorists who'd looked less frightened when facing the death penalty. And all I'd done was say a common expression, for the love of God. That was it. 3 words that billions of people said every day without thinking, and it had nearly broken that thing's containment and brought down the whole facility. Director Morrison came into the medical bay, and she did not look happy. Staff Sergeant, what you just did was reckless and dangerous. You nearly caused a containment breach that could have resulted in multiple casualties. I lowered the ice pack and looked at her. Ma'am, with all due respect, I also just discovered that we have leverage over that thing. Real leverage. Something that actually affects it physically. In 7 weeks, nobody found anything that could do that. I found it in 45 minutes. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing it, running the calculation of risk versus reward in her head. Finally, she pulled up a chair and sat down across from me. All right, tell me your assessment. What exactly did you discover? I rubbed my face, trying to organize my thoughts. That entity reacted to religious language. specifically to references to God and to Jesus. It wasn't just discomfort or irritation. It was pain, physical pain, like I'd hit it with something. Morrison leaned forward. The entity claimed that saying the name causes it pain. How do we know it wasn't just acting, playing on religious superstitions to manipulate us? That was a fair question, and I'd been thinking about it. Because the containment field failed, ma'am. For about 2 seconds, that electromagnetic barrier that's been holding it for 7 weeks just stopped. Every alarm in the facility went off. That wasn't acting. That was a real, measurable reaction. And the thing looked terrified. Not angry, terrified. I paused, remembering those black eyes filled with something that looked like genuine fear. Whatever power that name has over it, it's real. And it doesn't understand why any more than we do. Or if it does understand, the understanding scares it even more than the effect itself. Morrison sat back, processing this. And you want to go back in there and test it further? It wasn't a question. She knew. Yes, ma'am. Carefully. Scientifically. But yes, if we found something that can actually affect these entities, we need to understand it. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but we do this properly. Dr. Patterson will be monitoring your vitals in real time. We'll have the containment field reinforced to maximum capacity. And if I see any sign that you're compromised or that the entity is gaining some kind of psychological control over you, we pull you out immediately and you don't go back in. Are we clear? Crystal clear. 20 minutes later, I was back in that room, the creature watching me with those bottomless eyes as I sat down in the chair. The tension was different now. Before, it had been condescending, almost amused by me. Now it was wary. The containment field was humming louder than before. Multiple redundant systems engaged. The creature spoke first. You have returned. Foolish or brave. I cannot determine which. Its voice was still that resonating frequency that I felt in my chest, but there was an edge to it now. Caution, maybe even respect. You have discovered something your scientists could not. You have found the weapon. Now you wish to test it, to understand its limits. This is strategic thinking. Perhaps you are not as primitive as I initially assessed. I leaned forward, keeping my voice steady. I need to understand what happened. When I said those words, "For the love of God," you reacted like I'd hurt you. Why? The creature's fingers flexed in that disturbing way. Because those words carry an echo, a resonance. Your language has been shaped by centuries of invocation, of prayer, of billions of consciousnesses directing energy toward a concept. Words become containers for power, and some words contain more power than others. The word you casually invoked, the name you spoke without intention, it is the most powerful word in your dimensional reality. It is a frequency that causes us pain because it is fundamentally opposed to what we are. I absorbed this, then decided to test the limits, carefully. What if I say it again? What if I say God? The creature tensed, its body going rigid, but it didn't recoil like before. Instead, it seemed to be bracing itself, like someone preparing for an injection. That word has power, yes, but spoken without intention, without faith behind it, it is manageable, uncomfortable, but manageable. You do not believe. Your invocation is hollow, so the effect is minimal. That was interesting. The power wasn't in the word alone, but in something else. Belief? Intention? I needed to test further. What about other names? What about Allah? Nothing. The creature didn't even flinch. It tilted its head slightly, almost curious about where I was going with this. I continued. Buddha? Krishna? Muhammad? Still nothing. No reaction at all. The creature remained perfectly still, watching me with what might have been amusement. You are testing variables, attempting to establish parameters. This is intelligent methodology, but you are discovering what you already suspect. Those names do not affect me. Those teachers, those prophets, they were significant in your species' development. They taught truths, they elevated consciousness, they changed civilizations, but they did not do what he did. They did not break the fundamental laws. They did not create the frequency that unmakes us. Its voice had dropped lower, that resonance making the air itself seem to vibrate. There is only one name, one designation, one frequency that causes what you witnessed. I felt my pulse quicken. This was it, the confirmation I needed. Jesus. The creature jerked backward like I'd slapped it, the containment field flaring bright blue as electricity dished across its surface. It wasn't as violent as before, but the reaction was unmistakable. I saw its body convulse, saw those crystalline structures in its mouth grind together, heard a sound like metal scraping on metal. Behind me, I heard Dr. Patterson's voice through the observation speaker. Containment field holding at 87% capacity. Brennan's vitals elevated but stable. Continue. The creature slowly straightened, and when it looked at me, those black eyes were filled with something I hadn't seen before. Not just fear, rage. Cold, ancient rage, mixed with terror. You test me, it hissed. You invoke the name deliberately now. You wound me to satisfy your curiosity. This is cruelty, disguised as science. Its voice had changed, becoming sharper, more aggressive. Do you understand what you are doing? That name is not just a word. It is a weapon you do not comprehend and cannot control. I kept my voice level, professional, even though my heart was hammering. Then help me understand. Why does that specific name affect you? Why Jesus and not the others? The creature was trembling now, and I realized it was fighting something. Fighting the urge to lash out, maybe, or fighting the pain I was causing just by speaking. Because, it said through what sounded like gritted teeth, he was not supposed to exist. All the others, they were humans who achieved enlightenment, who touched higher consciousness, who became conduits for divine truth. They were significant. They changed your world, but they were still bound by the laws. They lived. They died. They became memory and legend and inspiration. The natural order was maintained. It paused, and I saw something ripple across its skin, patterns of light and shadow moving like storm clouds. But he was different. He was an anomaly, a glitch in reality. He was fully human and fully something else. He walked in your world and simultaneously existed in all dimensions. And when he died, the creature stopped, seemed to struggle with the next words. When he died, he did not stay dead. He went into the space between, the place you call hell, though that word does not adequately describe it. He went where we are, where we exist, where we feed and breed and plan. And he, the thing's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He won. In our own domain, in the darkness that we thought was ours alone, he brought light, not metaphorical light, actual, burning, purifying light that ripped through dimensions and scattered us like insects. And when he returned to your world, when he walked out of that tomb, he brought back with him a frequency, a vibration, a pattern of existence that rewrote the rules. His name carries that frequency. Every time it is spoken with faith, with intention, with recognition of what he did, it resonates across dimensions, and it hurts us. It has been hurting us for 2,000 years. I sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. This thing was confirming, in its own way, the core belief of Christianity, the resurrection, the victory over death, but describing it in terms of dimensional physics and frequencies rather than miracles and faith. Behind me, I could hear people in the observation room talking urgently, but I tuned them out. I had to push further. I had to understand the limits of this weapon I'd accidentally discovered. What if I say the full name? I asked quietly. Jesus Christ? The creature's reaction was immediate and violent. It screamed, that resonating frequency becoming a shriek that made every piece of glass in the room crack. The containment field blazed so bright I had to shield my eyes, and the creature was thrashing, its body contorting in ways that hurt to look at. Alarms were blaring, people were shouting, and I felt something warm running from my nose again. Another nosebleed. But I didn't look away, because in that moment of agony, the creature's form was changing, flickering, and I saw something underneath. Something that looked almost like wings, burned and broken. Something that might have been beautiful once, before it became this. The field stabilized. The creature collapsed to the bottom of the cylinder, and the shrieking stopped. In the sudden silence, I could hear my own ragged breathing and the frantic voices from the observation room. "Brennan, get out of there now!" Dr. Marsh was yelling. "The containment is at 34% and dropping." But the creature spoke, its voice weak, barely audible. "Stop, please. I will tell you what you want to know. Just stop saying that name. Stop weaponizing it against me." There was something in its voice I hadn't heard before. Pleading. Actual, genuine pleading. This thing that had called us primitives, that had looked at us with such contempt, was begging. I wiped the blood from my nose with the back of my hand. "I'm not trying to torture you. I'm trying to understand. Why does the full name have more power than just the first name?" The creature pulled itself back into a sitting position, but it looked diminished somehow, like I'd taken something from it. Because, it said slowly, Christ is not just a name. It is a title. It means anointed one, chosen one, Messiah. When you say both names together, you are not just invoking the human who walked in Galilee. You are invoking everything he became, everything he accomplished. You are invoking the moment that reality split, the moment that changed the war, the moment that sealed our defeat. The thing looked at me with those black eyes, and I saw exhaustion there. Ancient, bone-deep exhaustion. We have been fighting a war we already lost for 2,000 years. We take humans, we corrupt them, we cause suffering and despair. We convince them that darkness is stronger than light. We win battles, we claim souls, we create chaos and horror and hopelessness. But we are simply delaying the inevitable, because he won, and his name is proof. Every time it is spoken in faith, it is a reminder that the war is over, that we lost, that we are already defeated. I leaned back in my chair, my mind reeling. I'd come into this room expecting to interrogate an alien entity about its origins and intentions. Instead, I'd stumbled onto something far more profound and terrifying. I'd discovered that faith wasn't just philosophy or psychological comfort. It was a weapon, an actual, measurable, physical weapon that had power over beings that existed across dimensions. The name of Jesus wasn't just important in a religious sense. It was literally a force that could affect reality. I looked at the creature, this thing that had been so superior and condescending, now curled up like something wounded and broken. And I asked the question that was burning in my mind. If saying his name hurts you this much, why are you telling me all this? Why are you giving me information that makes me more dangerous to you? The creature was silent for a long moment. Then it looked up at me, and I swear I saw something like respect in those bottomless eyes. Because, it said quietly, you have already lost your faith. Your wife died and you turned away from him. You stopped believing. You are hollow, Michael Brennan. Empty of the frequency that would make you truly dangerous to me. The thing's mouth stretched into that disturbing almost smile. I am telling you this because I want to see what you will do with the knowledge. Will you reclaim your faith now that you know it is real? Or will you remain broken, armed with a weapon you cannot truly use because you do not believe? This is the test. This is the game. And I am curious which way you will fall. The containment field hummed louder, stabilizing back to full strength. Behind me, I heard the general's voice through the speakers. Staff Sergeant Brennan, exit the containment room immediately. We're ending this session. But I couldn't move, because I was staring at this creature, this entity that had just told me that God was real, that Jesus was real, that everything I'd turned away from 3 years ago was actually true, and I didn't know what to do with that information. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked toward the door. But before I left, I turned back one more time. The creature was watching me, waiting to see what I would say, and I realized something. It wasn't just curious. It was hoping. Hoping I would stay broken. Hoping the knowledge wouldn't heal the wound Sarah's death had left in me. Because if I stayed hollow, then I was proof that even knowing the truth wasn't enough. That even with all the evidence in the world, humans could still choose emptiness over faith. I met those black eyes one more time and said quietly, "This isn't over. I'm coming back. And next time, I'm going to understand exactly what happened 2,000 years ago that scares something like you so badly." The creature's smile faded. "Yes," it whispered, "you will come back. Because now you need to know. The knowledge is a hook in your mind, pulling you back to me. And when you return, I will show you things that will either save you or destroy you. There is no middle ground, Michael Brennan. Not anymore." All
right, we're going to stop it right there. And yeah, we'll pick up some more clips on the other side. But let me give you a chance to comment, Lisa, if you would.
Yeah, I was blown away when I heard it the first time, and then listening to it again, I was writing down some notes of even some other things about how words are like frequency. I just think it's so, I mean, we've been studying this for a while too. Like, you have to really be careful of the words you say, because especially in the English language, they've really created like a language of cursing. They really want us to be cursing each other like nonstop. And so that's what the English language is for. And like what they were saying is the words carry a resonance and they have power in them. And especially even in the English language, I know that God is not the name that most of us call on when we're calling for God. We've kind of gone back to the Hebrew to say Yah or the Most High. But even in the English language, the entities know. And I just think it's such a cool testimony of things that happened for a reason, so that this doctor was able to relay all this information to the rest of us. So I really appreciate it, Zen. And I wanted to see, I'm looking at the chat to see everyone else is saying too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of, the feeling that I get on it. And all the confirming witness, because we've known for a very long time, like Joe Jordan and his group, they did all that work with a lot of the dissociative identity disorder people that have been in possession of these entities and affected by them. A lot of families that are generational Freemasons that are also affected and influenced by these demonic entities. And because the elites still do the blood rituals that are spoken about in the Emerald Tablets, and how they are able to conjure up these demonic entities. But later we'll get into some clips where they talk about how, because the other thing that Scotty Clark in his video brought up is the biblical cosmology, and how so many people right now, under the deception of NASA, they believe that, every star in our system is a sun, and that all of them have the potential for evolving life randomly, as if it was in any manner random, which is absolutely kind of crazy, but that is the belief. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I just think it's so crazy too, and I love that at the end of the other interview, how Scotty brought in our true cosmology and how that's such a stronghold for people. I mean, we saw that in a recent trip to the Philippines when we met a couple. He was a young engineer from Amsterdam, and he and his wife were there visiting the Philippines too. And we sat down and we had a meal with them. We were talking with them. And then she kept bringing up, I need to ask the universe for my answers. And so I said, well, what do you believe the universe actually is? Because I kind of wanted to do a segue into talking about our cosmology. And she said, I never really thought about that before. I said, well, you know that we don't live on a spinning globe, right? And then there was 4 of us at the table that were totally on board with the whole flat earth thing, and then the 2 of them were not. And so they both just looked at each other, and she said, do you believe that Earth is flat? And I said, oh yeah, definitely. And then Noble chimed in, and our friends that we were with, they're both flat earthers too. So it was a very interesting conversation, but people just get really angry. Like, her husband got extremely angry with us, and he was trying to push the NASA stuff and trying to have this and that explained because he's an engineer. He still has the pride going on, that's his career, is to study science and totally believing everything he's been taught. And I tried to share too that, I was a teacher before. I used to teach the globe. I used to teach the spinning ball, but it took a lot for me to wake up to it also. And I was really angry too. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And I'm not sure if we'll hear back from them, but it's also a great way to share the Messiah with people, and because they're atheists, to share that yes, there is a God that created everything that we see, and even the angels, even the fallen angels, and so they kept trying to get their mind wrapped around it. He was putting in all these scientific debates on how we can see the distance and how far away the sun is, but once you wake up to the truth of that, I can't imagine anybody wanting to go back and say that they believe in the spinning globe again. But it's a really good point. I love AI. He brought up that's one of the strongholds. So I just thought that was really cool to share. Zen, did you have?
Yeah, most people would never go back on biblical cosmology once they understand and learn the truth. But of course, we see that Robbie Davison, Celebrate Truth, and Jaron Campanella and others, that they have now reneged on that, which is so odd to me. Of course, we've covered all that here, because no matter what you think about the Southern Stars and the movement of the Southern Stars, there is no curvature, and curvature is non-existent. So, but we also explain the Southern Star movement and all that as well. But anyways, we'll be back at the top of the hour, 2 minutes after, everybody. Commercials will be playing in the background. All right, be right back. Thirty seconds, everyone. All right. welcome back, everybody, for the second hour. Your host is Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Lisa is here with me, and we are talking about this whole video. Actually, I should get the name of it, but I'm giving you a chance to comment. Hello, David, and welcome everybody. But yeah, if you would, Lisa, comment, and then we'll move on into some other portions of these clips. All right, sorry about that, everybody. Welcome back for a second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio, and I have Lisa George with me, and we are talking about this whole interview that was conducted by this particular linguist with one of these demonic gray alien type entities, which of course is part of Legion and the fallen ones, the seraphim angels that were cast out of the heavens in very ancient times. But let me give you a chance to comment here, Lisa, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. There's some talk going on in the chat about if he would use some of the other names of God instead of the English form of Yah, which is God. And I agree with Roland when he said that entity is playing him. He said Jesus Christ. Imagine if he used the real name of the Messiah. And I can totally see why the translators who translated the Bible into English wanted to change the name of the word of Yah to Lord so many times, because I don't think Lord is one that they would recoil at, because that's just, in Hebrew that's another name for Baal. So it would make sense that they would want to take it out hundreds and hundreds of times, just like the book that Justin wrote, Zen, where he exposed all of that. What are your thoughts on that, Zen? Brother?
Yeah, sorry. I can hear you better when I'm muted, so I try to do that in between. But yeah, I think that's a very relevant and an awesome point, and very important, because again, a lot of people believe that the King James has not been tampered with in any manner, but of course that is one of the ways. And also, as you mentioned, my son wrote a book on the word of the Lord, and how that particular phrase, and all allusion to Christ in the ancient Pentateuch, which there were numerous, over 200 particular references to the word of the Lord as being, the helper of humanity, and also the right hand of the Father, the angel of the Lord, and so many other aspects. But yeah, when you really understand how involved the Messiah was with the ancient patriarchs, even to the point, like when you read the Targum rendition of the scriptures, and you read the very first few chapters, even in Genesis, about the fall of humanity, you see that it is the word of the Lord that removes them from their presence in paradise, and that he tells the cherubim not to let them eat from the tree of life, because he doesn't want them to be forever caught up in a fallen state of being. And so they are removed, they are cast down, and placed here, where the fallen angels had already been banished and had already developed very intricate high culture civilizations, and with the use of technologies and capabilities that we do not have and cannot replicate even in this day, time, and age. So yeah, so that's the fascinating thing about hearing this particular entity and all of what he has to say and the things that he covers in this particular interview. But yeah, let me give it over to you again, Lisa, and then we'll pick it up. And of course, we're going to have to do a follow-up to this particular show, because there are 6 major clips that I want to play. But we'll not be able to cover them all in this show. So we're going to do a mini series on this, and then I will try to remember to reach out to Scotty Clark and see if we can get him to talk about the information that he presented, and specifically on biblical cosmology, because I did not know that he was a flat earther, and so that was nice, a nice surprise. Lisa?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised too to hear right at the end of the interview that you were referencing Zen, that all of a sudden he the biblical cosmology stuff. I said, oh wow, and he's a flat earther too. That's even more awesome. I wanted to share some comments that are here in the chat. Donna even says that Abba himself says, "You will no longer call me Lord," which is kind of interesting. I think that's the word she was going to say here at the end. And then Sherry said, right, Zen, he wants everyone to have a chance to repent of their sins and be forgiven and be able to live with him. And Sherry, I agree with that too. Like, I think that that's also one of the purpose of the 144,000, these virgins, which are most likely children, in my opinion, will go out to share the gospel during the tribulation. And that's kind of like the last chance that people will have, to be witnessed to by someone here on earth, and to repent of their sins. And that's truly what Abba loves. Like, he hates sin so much, but he really loves repentance. So if we sin and it's by accident, and we apologize, and we just we observe the Day of Atonement, of course, that's annual, once a year, a day of fasting, a full day of repentance. But of course, we can repent anytime we want, and Abba loves it. So that's the main thing to just keep in mind. And I know when I sin and I don't realize it till later, I just feel so awful about it. And I want to make sure I repent of everything, especially even in your prayers, to incorporate repentance. At the end of the day, when Noble and I pray together, and we just ask Yah to please forgive us of any sins we may have done unknowingly. Those that we knowingly did, we just repent, and just please wipe our slate clean again, Abba. And he loves that. He loves the repentance. They're just like our own children. How many of you, if you have your own children, how many of you are so appreciative of when your children come to you and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I did this, or I did realize I did this, and I just wanted to tell you I'm very sorry, it won't happen again. That's kind of the same feeling, like Abba is modeling through our children the feeling that he has about repentance. What are your thoughts on that, Zen?
I fully and absolutely agree with you. And yeah, that's the illusion that I would use as well, because, when I watch my grandkids and they're growing up and they're learning, about right and wrong, and, when they get tired and sleepy and they get attitudes and all that kind of stuff. So it's the same kind of thing, with humanity. We are the children of the Most High, and we certainly fall short, and we are definitely not, we're created beings. We are certainly not God, and that's another one of the deceptions that Satan has laid down on the hearts of people, is that the New Age teaches that you can be God yourself, which is a complete lie. But it's one that has worked since the very beginning, and it's one that continues to work. And so we see that a lot of people do embrace that whole Luciferian ideology of do as thou wilt, because they are trying to aspire to be gods themselves, which is a possibility. But again, so many are caught up in the strong delusion and the lies that they believe a lot that is just pure cockadoodle-doo, So, would you care to comment one more time before we move on?
Yeah, and what you just said, the enemy has been using that lie ever since the very beginning in the garden with Adam and Eve. Oh, you'll become as gods. That's something that I think that he knows that people have a sense of pride, and that's only through sin, because the Most High hates pride as well. But if the enemy can get people to think that they're so wonderful and that they could eventually become gods, He's so subtle about it too. And that's what led to the sin in the garden of Eve wanting to move toward that tree and the enemy himself. And even though she and Adam had everything, they were the closest to the Most High you could possibly get. But even just that statement, oh, you can be as gods. There's so many out there that are just falling for that lie today. So I totally agree with that, Zen. Did you have another clip you were saying you wanted to play?
Yeah, we're going to finish up that first one. But yeah, I do absolutely agree with you. And he does appeal to the prideful aspect that is inborn within humanity. And, that's why certain people, they believe that they are the chosen or that they are the elect because of a particular bloodline affiliation or being born into certain families. A lot of like those families that own control of industry or that are part of the banking families which print the money and loan it to interest to our governments. I mean, those are definitely powerful individuals here on the earth, but they are so compromised that they will, at the expense of eternity, they receive the benefits of power and control, wealth, money, and status, and above the law, because they believe that they're above the law and that they can indulge in things like pedophilia, cannibalism, drinking, consuming blood, things like that. So, yeah, that's the distinction. That's the differentiation between the children of the Most High and the children of Baal. All right, we're going to finish out this first clip, and depending on how much time might be able to get to two more.
Out of that room with my mind spinning and blood still crusted under my nose. Dr. Marsh grabbed my arm as soon as the door sealed behind me. What the hell happened in there? We recorded everything, but half of it doesn't make sense. The entity was talking about Jesus, about frequencies, about some kind of war. I looked at her, then at all the scientists and military personnel staring at me like I'd just walked out of ground zero of something they couldn't understand. And I realized that I had. I just discovered that the spiritual war that billions of people believed in wasn't metaphorical. It was real. It was happening across dimensions we couldn't see. And the weapon in that war was faith, was a name, was the memory of something that happened 2,000 years ago that still echoed through reality. I need to talk to Chaplain Matthews, I said. Right now, because I just found out that everything he believes is true. And I need to understand why that terrifies me more than anything else I've seen today. I spent 2 hours with Chaplain Matthews in a small office that smelled like stale coffee and old paperwork. He sat across from me, that silver cross on his uniform catching the fluorescent light, and listened without interrupting as I told him everything about the creature's reactions, about the power in the name, about the confirmation that everything he'd dedicated his life to believing was somehow impossibly, verifiably real. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time, just sitting there with his hands folded, staring at nothing. Finally, he spoke. Staff Sergeant, I've been a chaplain for 15 years. I've counseled hundreds of soldiers, talked people through crisis of faith, through doubt, through the kind of darkness that combat brings. And in all that time, the one thing I've never had is proof. Faith, by definition, is believing without proof. But you're telling me that in that room, you found proof. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And it terrifies you more than it comforts you. He was right. It did terrify me, because if it was all real, if God was real and Jesus was real, and there really was a spiritual war happening across dimensions we couldn't see, then that meant Sarah's death wasn't just random tragedy. It meant there was a plan, a purpose, a reason behind the suffering. And I didn't know if I could accept that. I didn't know if I wanted to. Matthews leaned forward. Michael, can I tell you something? The entity in that room, it's afraid. You said that yourself. It's afraid because it knows how the story ends. It knows who wins. But it's also strategic. It's been talking to you, revealing things, giving you information. Why? What does it gain from that? I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on extracting information that I hadn't considered what the creature's motivations might be. You think it's manipulating me? Matthews nodded slowly. I think it's been manipulating everyone in this facility since it arrived. 7 weeks of silence wasn't because it couldn't communicate. It was because it was observing, learning, waiting for the right person. Someone smart enough to be useful, but broken enough to be vulnerable. Someone like you. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. I rubbed my face with both hands, feeling the exhaustion settling into my bones. So what do? Walk away? Let someone else handle it? Matthews shook his head. No, I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. But you need to go in there with your eyes open. That thing will offer you knowledge, truth, answers to questions you've been asking since your wife died. And some of what it tells you will be true. But it will wrap those truths in lies, in distortions, in interpretations designed to keep you from the one truth that actually matters. He touched the cross on his uniform. That despite everything, despite the darkness and the suffering and the loss, love wins. That's what terrifies them. Not power, not judgment. Love. The kind of love that would die for enemies. That's the frequency that unmakes them. And they'll do anything to keep you from understanding that. 4 hours later, I was back in the containment room. The creature was waiting for me, floating in that meditation position. But it looked different somehow. Less hostile. Almost expectant. When I sat down, it spoke immediately. You went to the holy man, the priest, seeking guidance, seeking interpretation of what I told you. I didn't bother asking how it knew. At this point, I was past being surprised. Yeah, I did. He thinks you're manipulating me. The creature made that sound that might have been laughter, like glass breaking in slow motion. Of course I am manipulating you. You are manipulating me. This is the nature of interrogation, is it not? Each of us trying to extract information while revealing as little as possible. Each of us playing a game within a game. The question is not whether manipulation is occurring. The question is, who will win? It tilted its head, studying me. But I grow weary of this dance, Michael Brennan. You have wounded me repeatedly with your invocations. My tolerance for pain has limits. So I propose an exchange. A treaty, if you will. I crossed my arms, keeping my face neutral even though my heart rate was picking up. What kind of exchange? The creature's fingers flexed in that disturbing fluid motion. I will answer your questions. All of them. I will tell you truths about your reality that your species has been groping toward for millennia. I will explain what happened 2,000 years ago from a perspective no human has ever heard. I will show you the war that rages in dimensions you cannot perceive. I will give you knowledge that your religions and your sciences have only glimpsed in fragments. It paused, those black eyes boring into me. In exchange, you will not speak that name again. Not the partial designation. Not the full invocation. Not as a weapon. Not as an exclamation. Not even as a casual reference. You will ask your questions without using it. If you agree, I will teach you things that will transform your understanding of existence itself. If you refuse, I will return to silence, and you will learn nothing more from me. I sat there, weighing it. On one hand, this was exactly what we needed. Information, understanding, insight into what these entities were and what they wanted. On the other hand, I was giving up the only leverage I had, the only weapon that seemed to affect it. I could hear Chaplain Matthews' voice in my head, warning me about manipulation, about half-truths wrapped in lies. But I could also feel the pull of curiosity, the desperate need to understand, to know. How do I know you'll actually tell me the truth? The creature made a sound that might have been a sigh. You do not. You will have to evaluate each piece of information I provide and determine its veracity for yourself. But consider this. I have already told you truths that your people would have called impossible. I told you that your Jesus was real, that what he did caused us pain, that we lost a war we are still pretending to fight. Why would I admit defeat if I were simply lying to you? It had a point. The creature had already given us more than we had before. And the reactions had been real, measurable, documented. Unless this was all some incredibly elaborate manipulation, some kind of psychological warfare on a level I couldn't comprehend. But if that was the case, what choice did I have? We needed information, and this was the only source we had. I looked back at the observation window, at the shadowy figures watching. Director Morrison's voice came through my earpiece. Brennan, it's your call, but understand that if you make this agreement, you're operating without your primary leverage. We don't know what that means for your safety. I thought about Sarah, about how she'd always pushed me to take risks, to chase understanding even when it was uncomfortable, about how she'd believed that truth was worth pursuing no matter the cost. And I made my decision. All right, I said to the creature. I agree. I won't use that name again. In exchange, you tell me everything. No riddles. No cryptic nonsense. Real answers. The creature was silent for a moment, and then it did something I'd never seen before. It moved its right hand to its chest, in a gesture that looked almost like a salute or a promise. Agreed. We have a treaty, Michael Brennan. I will honor it as long as you do. The air in the room seemed to change, like a pressure had been released. The creature settled lower in its containment field, getting comfortable. Now, ask your questions. Ask the things you truly want to know, not the tactical questions your superiors want answered, not the safe questions. Ask the questions that have been burning in your mind since you walked into this room. Ask about your wife. Ask about death. Ask about what happens to human consciousness when the meat stops working. Ask about the war. Ask me, and I will answer. My throat was dry, because the creature was right. There were questions I'd been avoiding, questions too personal, too raw. But now, with this agreement in place, I had permission to ask them. All right, I said slowly. Let's start with something basic. You said you're not from another planet. You're from another dimension. What does that actually mean? The creature's eyes seemed to brighten slightly, like it was pleased with the question. Your universe exists in 3 spatial dimensions, plus time. You can move forward, backward, left, right, up, down. You experience time as a linear progression from past to future. This is your prison, and you do not even know you are imprisoned. But reality is not limited to your 4 dimensions. There are others, dimensions perpendicular to your own. Dimensions that intersect with yours at every point, but remain invisible to your senses. We exist primarily in those adjacent dimensions. We can perceive your reality, move through it, interact with it, but we are not bound by it the way you are. Think of it like this. You are drawings on a piece of paper, 2-dimensional. We are 3-dimensional beings looking down at the paper, able to see the whole picture at once, able to reach in and touch any part of it. I tried to wrap my mind around that. So you're saying you can see all of time at once? Past, present, future. The creature made a negating gesture. Not all of time. Time is complex, even for us. But we perceive it differently than you do. Where you see a straight line, we see something more like a river with branches and tributaries. Multiple possible futures flowing from every present moment. We can see probabilities, trends, likely outcomes. This is why your prophets throughout history could sometimes glimpse the future. They were not seeing one fixed destiny. They were perceiving the strongest currents in the river of time, the paths that probability favored most heavily. It paused, but he changed that. The one whose name we agreed you would not speak. When he did what he did, he introduced a massive disruption into the flow, a new current so powerful it redirected everything. This is another reason we fear him. He made the future uncertain even for us. I leaned forward, my scientific curiosity wrestling with my skepticism. You keep talking about what he did, about how he changed things, but you're being vague about the specifics. What exactly happened 2,000 years ago? The creature's form rippled, patterns of light and shadow moving across its surface. I will tell you, but understand that the truth is stranger than your religions have taught. The man you call by that name was born human, fully human, with human DNA and human biology. But he was also something else. Something that should not have been possible. He was consciousness from a higher dimension, compressed into 3-dimensional flesh. Imagine taking a sphere and forcing it to exist as a circle. The circle contains only a fraction of the sphere's true nature, but the sphere is still there, existing in dimensions the circle cannot perceive. That was him, fully human and fully divine, existing simultaneously in your dimension and in all dimensions. The thing's voice took on something almost like respect. We did not understand what he was at first. We saw another human prophet, another teacher, another potential threat to our influence. We have dealt with many such humans throughout your history. Buddha, Lao Tzu, numerous others who touched higher consciousness and tried to elevate your species. We cannot kill such individuals directly. The rules do not permit it, but we can influence others to kill them. We can create circumstances that lead to their silence. My hands were gripping the arms of the chair hard enough that my knuckles were white. You're saying you influenced people to crucify him. The creature's black eyes fixed on me. We influenced Judas. We influenced the crowd that called for his death. We influenced Pilate to sign the order. We were operating through human agents, as we always do. We thought we had won. We thought we had silenced another troublesome teacher before his message could spread too far. The thing's voice dropped lower. We were wrong. Catastrophically, apocalyptically wrong. Because when he died, he did not go where humans go. He went where we are. He descended into what you call hell, though that word fails to capture the reality of it. Hell is not fire and brimstone. Hell is the absence of the divine frequency. It is the space between dimensions where consciousness exists without light, without love, without hope. It is where we dwell. It is our domain. The patterns on its skin were moving faster now, agitated, and he invaded it. He came into our realm, into the place where we thought we were supreme, and he brought the frequency with him, the frequency of pure, uncorrupted, absolute divine love. And it burned us. It scattered us. It shattered the structures we had built over eons. And then he took with him the human consciousness that had been trapped there. He freed them. He led them out. And when he returned to your dimension, when he walked out of that tomb with a physical body that should have been dead, he proved that death itself had been defeated, that our primary weapon, our ultimate threat, was no longer absolute. I sat there, trying to process what I was hearing. The story was familiar. The basic outline matched what I'd learned in Sunday school as a kid, but hearing it described in these terms, in language of dimensions and frequencies and invasions, it was both more real and more terrifying than I'd ever imagined. So the resurrection actually happened. That's what you're saying. He actually came back from the dead. The creature's response was immediate and forceful. He did not come back from the dead. That phrasing suggests he was dead and then became alive again. No, he was dead and alive simultaneously. He existed in death and beyond death at the same time. He experienced the full weight of human mortality and transcended it while still carrying it. This is the paradox that unmade our certainty. We thought we understood the rules. We thought death was the boundary, the limit, the end. He proved we were wrong. The thing leaned forward slightly, and I could feel the intensity of its focus. Do you understand what this means? It means that human consciousness is not limited to your 3 dimensions plus time. It means there is continuity beyond death. It means we cannot ultimately win because the game board is larger than we thought, and he controls territory we cannot touch. My mind was reeling. Part of me, the skeptical part trained in interrogation and critical thinking, was looking for the manipulation, the lie, the angle. But another part of me, a part I'd tried to bury since Sarah died, was hearing these words and feeling something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Dangerous. Terrifying hope. What about people who die without believing in him? What happens to them? The creature was quiet for a moment, and when it spoke again, its voice was softer. This is a more complex question than your religions acknowledge. Consciousness does not simply switch off at death. It transitions. Where it transitions to depends on many factors. Alignment with the divine frequency is the primary factor, but alignment can occur in many ways. Your religions have made it about believing correct doctrines, speaking correct words, performing correct rituals. This is a grotesque simplification. The question is whether a consciousness resonates with love, with light, with the pattern of higher dimensions. Some who never spoke his name resonate perfectly. Some who spoke it constantly resonate not at all. I thought about Sarah, about whether she'd believed enough, resonated enough, aligned enough. The creature seemed to sense my thoughts. Your mate, it said quietly. Sarah, you wonder where she is. What happened to her consciousness when her body failed? I felt tears burning behind my eyes and fought them back. Can you tell me? Do you know? The creature tilted its head. I know that she died suddenly, without warning, without time to prepare. I know that her last thought was of you, hope that you were safe. I know that her consciousness transitioned cleanly, without fragmentation. Where she is now, I cannot perceive directly because it exists in a frequency I cannot access. But I can tell you this, she is not in the place where we dwell. She is not in darkness. She is not in absence, which means she is in light, which means she is in presence, which means, by the logic of what I have told you, she is with him, with the one whose name we agreed you would not speak. I couldn't stop the tears then. They just came, hot and sudden. 3 years of grief I'd been holding back, breaking through in a wave that left me gasping. Behind me, I heard Dr. Marsh's voice in my earpiece, concerned. Brennan, your vitals are all over the place. Do you need a break? I waved her off, wiping my face with my sleeve. The creature watched me cry with those bottomless black eyes, and for the first time, I didn't sense condescension or amusement, just observation. Clinical, detached observation. You weep because you have hope now, it said. Hope is painful when you have been without it for so long. It reopens wounds you thought were scarred over. This is why many humans choose despair. It is easier. It requires less courage. The thing's voice was almost gentle now, which somehow made it more disturbing. But I have given you what you asked for. Truth. Your mate is not lost. Death is not the end. The war is real, but the outcome is already decided. Now you must choose what to do with this knowledge. Will you rebuild your faith? Will you align yourself with the frequency that frightens us? Or will you remain broken, armed with knowledge, but paralyzed by doubt? All
right, we're going to stop it right there and share some commentary. It's quite a lot. And as you can see from this interview, this individual, he lost his wife, Sarah. And a lot of times when that happens to people, they do go through a spiritual crisis of faith. And a lot of times they will, because of losing their significant other or children or, things like that, it just ruins, it's devastating for their relationships with the Most High. They shut down, they don't believe, and, they're always questioning, well, how can a just God, take my child or take my wife or whatever? But we are also responsible for a lot of what we do in this world. Like, we eat a bunch of food that has just terrible things in them. Thank God for RFK taking out a lot of that, even the fluoride out of the water, things like that. But the preservatives, just all kind of just weird ingredients, monosodium glutamate, high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, the sugar substitutes, all of those kind of things. They are not good for you, and they are causing a health crisis in this country, which is also related to a spiritual crisis, because people are dying of diabetes and dying of cancer, and a lot of that is related to the sugar and the overconsumption of it, which we find it in everything, and it's unfortunate. Lisa?
No, I agree, Zen. Like, the enemy has really set up the rulers of the earth, and, as I've deduced, and also from hearing your talks on this, as well as Gary Wayne, that we are now being ruled by those who believe that they have the divine right to rule because of their bloodlines. And so everyone that has power, whose name, especially those whose names are famous in the media, along, those people that we consider the elite, they're the ones in charge of trying to poison and kill us all very slowly. They ultimately, one is dead, but they hate us so much. They want to just see us suffer as much as possible. So that's why, who would be doing this to our food, except unless they're total psychopaths? The ruling class totally is psychopaths, and we'll hear more of that in the other interview that Zen is going to be posting maybe next time, done by Scott Clark. But that is just, to me, it makes no sense unless you totally hate all people. And they do, because they are the offspring of the Nephilim. The Nephilim even mentions in the book of Enoch that the Nephilim hate us. They hate humans because they are part human themselves, and they probably wish they were born to 100% divine, 100% angel, instead of having this human side that just craves food, and they crave, their sexual desires. They have all of these needs that would not need to be fulfilled if they were total fallen angel. So that's why they really hate humans. They especially hate women, because they were born of women, and it mentions this in the book of Enoch also. And so in order to get back at the human race, I'm guessing that that's one of the reasons why they want to poison us, why they create all these diversions and They love the control. They're such huge egos. They're so power hungry. They love the control. I love how he mentioned about hope, though. When it mentions that the man who was interviewing, the doctor who was interviewing this entity, how he broke down, and the entity saw right away, yes, it's because you have hope. And I like what Donna said in the chat too. She said, hope is everything. And our hope is built on nothing less except for Yeshua, except for the Messiah, for Christ and what he did for us, to give us hope of a future, of hope to, be with him forever, to be in what was described as being in the light, because we know that Yeshua is the light of the world. He literally was the light that resided over the tree of life in the garden. And he came as that light, as the star, in the form of a star. When we read the Revelation of the Magi, how he appeared to humans for the first time, to the Magi, also known as the Magino'o, on Mount Hibbuk, and traveled with them. And he loves to interact with us. I mean, he loves us so much that that's what he would do for us, to lay down his life. But I just thought the interview was so amazing. I think all of us have lost someone who's close to us, and we can really relate with hearing that, yes, there is hope that we will see them again. Do you have thoughts on that, Zen, as well?
That is the most amazing thing. And yes, you're right that Christ is the eternal hope. He is the wellspring for the waters of life. And he is the Savior, Messiah. He extends salvation to all of us. He paid the price of the Passover lamb. And we are redeemed because of his blood and the shedding of it. And we are not worthy, of course. We all fall short of the grace and even the expectations of the Most High, but he is long-suffering, and he knows that we're going to fall short. We're going to commit sin. We're going to be led astray in temptation. But the idea is to be born again in the Spirit and to go forth and sin no more. We're the prodigal children coming home for the feast and the wedding celebration, and God willing, we will all be counted worthy of that Sabbath rest and the millennial age, and we have to fight and overcome these adversities. But the most important thing is to understand and know your enemy. I mean, this was the basis of Sun Tzu. The art of war is to understand your enemy and the strategies that they employ to take you down and to destroy you. And of course, there are tactics that the Illuminati, through divide and conquer, the separation, the division of minorities, and the funding of both the left and the right, that they are able to create controlled opposition in order to get their way and to lead people astray. And this entity will talk about that as well, about how they are the darkness and that they fight against the light and that they are evil entities and very callous and have no concern for humanity but only want us to fall with them. And so, some very powerful revelations coming forth in this dialogue and in this interview. All right, Lisa, I'll give you a chance to comment again, and then we'll move forward and see if we can get through this segment, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to comment. Kat, they're discussing about AI and how if we can trust them, can't trust them. And I think I can say that I don't fully trust AI, but it is very interesting to hear their answers and how readily they can quote scripture. I don't trust 100% of what this AI thing is saying, and I don't think any of us should, but I just think that this discussion is extremely interesting, that we've gotten to this point in technology to know what the elite have been doing all this time. They have been able to communicate with their fallen angel ancestors from the time they're born. And so they are privy to all of this knowledge, which is why the elite can quote scripture probably better than a lot of those who are believers, because they are saturated with it from birth and knowing prophecy, so that they can bring their own new world order to come to pass more easily and deceive us. But I'm looking forward to hearing more of the interview, Zen. If you're ready, that would be awesome.
All right, yeah, let me just comment real quickly about one thing that you said. Definitely the AI, without a doubt, is connected to the beast system and to the fallen angel technology and to that which will be established even in humans, the cybernetic, the Neuralink, and that cyborg technology, which will alter humanity. It will be the mark of the beast that, could even bring on a type of existence where you're not able to die. And certainly they are creating right now robots, the assistants, and also like sex slaves. But I think that these AI robots and technologies, that they are going to become possessed by the demonic fallen angel giant entities, those shadow beings, which are not able to go on to salvation or eternity, and that roam here on the earth looking for souls to possess and people to antagonize and destroy. And so that will be part of not only this conversation, but also that of the other one, which we will get into at a later time. All right, let's pick up a few more, a little bit of this, and we'll stop a few minutes before show end and comment again.
Took a shaky breath, trying to compose myself. Why do you care? Why does it matter to you what I choose? The creature's mouth stretched into that disturbing, almost smile. Because you are the first human in this facility who has both the knowledge and the pain to be truly dangerous to us. The scientists do not believe. They merely observe. The soldiers follow orders without understanding. The religious ones believe but lack proof, so their faith is soft, uncertain. But you, Michael Brennan, you now have both proof and motivation. If you choose to align with the frequency, if you choose to truly believe not as abstract philosophy but as concrete reality, you become a weapon we cannot easily counter. So yes, I care what you choose. I care very much. Because your choice may determine whether I remain here as a curiosity for your scientists to study, or whether I am compelled to act in ways that will cause considerable destruction. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. This is not a threat. This is simply a statement of fact. The stronger your faith becomes, the more difficult my existence in this dimension becomes. The more you align with his frequency, the more painful my presence here is. At a certain threshold, remaining here will become impossible. I will be forced to flee, and my fleeing may not be gentle. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking from the emotional release. So this whole agreement, this whole exchange of information, it's what? A test? You're trying to see if giving me proof will strengthen my faith, or if I'm too broken for it to matter. The creature inclined its head in what might have been a nod. Yes, precisely. You are the experiment, Michael Brennan. I am curious whether truth is enough to heal what grief has broken. I am curious whether a human who has turned away from the divine can be turned back by evidence alone. Most cannot. Most require experience, encounter, subjective revelation that cannot be shared or proven. But you are different. You are rational. You value evidence. So I have given you evidence. Now we both wait to see what you will do with it. It leaned forward slightly. And I will tell you one more thing. One piece of information that I will give you freely, without you having to ask. That woman in the observation room, Dr. Marsh, she has been compromised. She has been listening to my voice for weeks, and the frequencies I produce have been affecting her consciousness. She is losing her ability to perceive meaning. Soon she will lose her ability to hold any belief at all, including belief in her own existence. She has perhaps 3 weeks before she becomes a shell, a meat puppet going through motions without any internal experience. I tell you this not as cruelty, but as demonstration. This is what we do. This is what we have always done. We erode, we corrupt, we introduce doubt and despair and absence, and we do it so gradually that most never realize it is happening until it is too late. I looked back at the observation window, at the silhouette that was Dr. Marsh, and felt ice in my stomach. Can it be stopped? Can she be saved? The creature's smile widened. Oh yes, easily. She need only be removed from my presence and exposed to the counter-frequency. Prayer, worship, genuine connection to the divine pattern. It would heal the damage I have done, but she must choose it. She must want it, and I have spent weeks convincing her that such things are primitive superstitions, that consciousness is merely neurons firing, that there is no meaning beyond biological imperative. So even though the cure exists, she will likely refuse it. She will rationalize her deterioration as stress, as mental illness, as anything but what it actually is. And she will descend into void while surrounded by people who could save her, simply because I have convinced her that salvation is not real. The thing settled back into its meditation position. This is the war, Michael Brennan. Not armies clashing with swords, not dramatic battles between good and evil. Just quiet erosion, just slow corruption, just the gradual replacement of light with absence. One consciousness at a time. We have been doing this for millennia, and we are very, very good at it. I stood there, staring at this creature, this entity that had just confirmed my worst fears and my deepest hopes in the same conversation. It had told me that Sarah was okay, that there was life beyond death, that the resurrection was real. But it had also shown me the true nature of the war we were in, the insidious way that darkness worked, the thousands of ways that hope could be stolen, without people even realizing it was happening. And I understood now why Chaplain Matthews had warned me, because yes, the creature was telling me truths, but it was framing those truths in ways that served its purposes. It was giving me evidence while simultaneously showing me how hopeless the fight was. It was offering hope while demonstrating that hope wasn't enough. I need to go, I said quietly. I need to think about everything you've told me. The creature inclined its head. Of course. Go. Process. Choose. But know this. When you return, and you will return because the knowledge is a hook in your mind now, I will tell you more. I will tell you about the others like me who are coming. I will tell you about the events that are being orchestrated even now. I will tell you about the timeline that is collapsing toward a convergence point. And I will tell you why, despite everything I have revealed, you cannot stop what is coming. I walked out of that room with my mind spinning and my heart breaking and my faith, which I thought had died 3 years ago, stirring in my chest like something wounded trying to stand. Behind me, I heard the creature speak one last time, its voice following me through the closing door. One more thing, Michael Brennan. A gift. A piece of information you did not ask for but need to know. The agreement we made that you would not speak his name? I lied. You can speak it whenever you wish. The agreement binds nothing. I simply wanted to see if you would trade your only weapon for knowledge. And you did. This is why we will win in the end. Because even when you know the truth, even when you have proof, even when you understand the war, you will still make the choices that serve us. You are predictable. All of you are predictable. And predictable enemies are enemies already defeated. The door sealed, and I stood in the corridor outside, shaking with rage and fear, and something else I couldn't quite name, because I'd just been played, completely and utterly played. And the worst part was, the creature was right. I'd traded away my weapon for truth, and now I had to figure out whether that truth was enough to forge a new weapon, or whether I'd just disarmed myself in a war I was only beginning to understand. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in the small quarters they'd assigned me in the underground facility, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything the creature had said. The lie about the agreement kept eating at me. It had been so casual about it, so matter-of-fact, like manipulating me was just a natural part of conversation. And the worst part was that it was right. I had traded away my only weapon for knowledge. Even knowing I could still use the name, the psychological damage was done. I'd shown weakness. I'd revealed that I valued understanding more than tactical advantage. And now the creature knew exactly how to play me. Around 0400, I gave up trying to sleep and went to find Chaplain Matthews. I found him in the facility's small chapel, a room barely bigger than a closet with a simple cross on the wall and a few chairs. He was praying, or trying to, his head bowed and his hands clasped. When he heard me enter, he looked up, and I saw exhaustion in his eyes that matched my own. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. I shook my head and sat down in one of the chairs. It told me Sarah is okay, that she's with him, that death isn't the end. My voice cracked on the words. And then it told me it had been lying about our agreement, that it manipulated me just to prove it could, just to show me that even with the truth, even with proof, we'll still make the wrong choices. Matthews was quiet for a long moment. And which part hurts more, the lie or the truth? I thought about that. I don't know. Both. Neither. I don't know what to believe anymore. How do I trust anything it says when it admits to lying? But how do I ignore what I've seen? The reactions were real. The fear was real. Something about that name has power over it. That's not manipulation. That's observable fact. Matthews leaned back in his chair. Michael, can I tell you something I've learned in 15 years of ministry? The devil's favorite lie isn't that God doesn't exist. It's that God exists, but doesn't matter. That truth exists, but changes nothing. That you can have all the evidence in the world and still be powerless. Don't let it convince you of that. 6 hours later, I was back in the containment room. The creature was waiting for me, and I swear it looked pleased. You came back quickly, it said. I expected you to need more time to process, to lick your wounds, to feel betrayed. But here you are, less than a day later, ready for more. This is either courage or addiction. I suspect the latter. I sat down and looked at it with as much calm as I could muster. You told me you'd explain what you really are, not the dimensional physics lecture. The truth. You said we've known about you for millennia, but used the wrong names. So tell me, what are you? The creature's eyes seemed to brighten, and I realized it had been waiting for this question, hoping for it. Finally, it said. Finally you ask the correct question. Not where I am from, but what I am. It settled into a more comfortable position, those two long limbs arranging themselves in ways that still made my brain hurt to watch. Very well. I will tell you the truth, that your species has been circling around since you first developed language and religion and the cognitive capacity to wonder about the unseen. We are not aliens in the sense your science fiction imagines. We are not travelers from distant stars, though we can traverse distances you call cosmic in ways you do not understand. We are not visitors. We are not explorers. We are, it paused, seeming to choose its words carefully, indigenous. We have been here since before your species existed, since before this planet cooled enough for organic chemistry to begin its work. We exist in the spaces adjacent to your reality, in dimensions that interpenetrate your own at every point, but remain invisible to your limited senses. Think of us as neighbors who share your walls but live in rooms you cannot enter. We have always been here. We have always been watching. We have always been interfacing with your kind. The patterns on its skin shifted, moving in hypnotic waves. Your ancestors knew us. Every culture, every civilization, every tribe that developed language and storytelling, they encountered us. They had to name us, to categorize us, to fit us into their frameworks of understanding. And so they called us many things. I felt my pulse quicken. What things? What did they call you? The creature's mouth stretched into that disturbing smile. The Sumerians called us the Anunnaki. The Hebrews called us the Nephilim, the Watchers, the Fallen Angels. The Greeks called us daemons and divided us into categories, trying to understand which of us were helpful and which were hostile. The Egyptians called us the Neteru and built temples to negotiate with us. The Hindus called us Asuras and Devas and told stories of wars between our factions that lasted eons. The Norse called us Jotnar, giants from other realms. The Celts called us the Sidhe, the fair folk, and knew enough to be terrified of us. It leaned forward. Every religion, every mythology, every ancient text that speaks of beings more powerful than humans, beings that could perform miracles or curses, beings that demanded worship or sacrifice or acknowledgement, they were all describing us. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, us. I sat there, my mind racing through everything I'd learned in comparative religion courses. Everything.
All right, we're going to stop it there. That is the perfect end for the segment. And it shows you how this truth that is coming forward now, it ties together with the fact that the Anunnaki are the Christian Nephilim. They are the giants and the fallen angels of old, and they are the ones that are the arch nemesis of humanity and of Yah. And it should become clear now. Anybody that has been on the fence with trying to make sense of all this, well, I mean, this is one of the things that could help you to connect the dots and to make sense of the underlying truth, which is interwoven into all things. Lisa, final comment.
Yeah, I really like how he broke it down. He said that every tribe who developed language encountered us, and then he went on to name all the different names. I thought that was really helpful, and I agree with you, Zen. If anybody is on the fence as to wondering exactly who the Anunnaki were, this definitely will help you connect some dots. Even the Shays, the Celts, were afraid of them, I guess you kind of said, and and these are the same entities that are worshipped by the ruling class. And so if you want to know who you're dealing with, just look at who's in control of governments and big businesses and everything. But I know we're almost done with the show. Zen, did you have a final comment as well, brother?
No, we are already at break, everybody. So God bless all. Good night. We'll see you on Saturday. Shalom. Good night, Lisa.
All right. Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Zen.
Thank you. Good night, all. Be blessed.
Good night, brother. Okay.